Democrats might have won control of the House in the midterm election, but not every policy priority faces gridlock. Really? I don't. We're in a show me position. Infrastructure is one of the issues that could win by partisan support. Joining us now is Norm Anderson, CGLA Infrastructure President and CEO. Norm, I want you to put your finger in the air to see what 2019 is going to be like, but I want you to think about this first. So in the first 2 months of the fiscal year, we raised a record amount of revenue, but we had a record deficit for the first 2 months. So we raised $764 billion. We raised 458. We spent 764. Record revenues, but record spending and a record deficit. How the heck are we going to do anything infrastructure-wise? Trump can't even get $5 billion for a border wall.
Yeah,
it's tough.
No, I think it's really tough. And, you know, one of the messages, I think, is that this bipartisan Congress ought to try to do something small for infrastructure. They're not going to do anything large, right? They're talking about $500 billion. That's hard, but if you think about it, the issue there is that it's still going to take a year or more to get that money into the economy. So you've got to really focus on private investment in infrastructure, and you've got to focus on, we talk about that when I come in here, projects and specific projects. They're ready to go. You know, we've got one project, the high-speed rail project between Texas and Houston. Yeah. They're on their fifth toad study. They didn't find any toads in the first four, so they have to do a fifth toad study. We've got to figure out how to facilitate the process so you can innovate, you can get stuff done, you can bring capital into the market.
That doesn't sound like an awful idea. I know the rugged individuals in Texas like to drive the pickups from Houston to Dallas, but it'd be nice to get on a nice high-speed train like they do in Europe, maybe. I guess. Does it make economic sense? Will it be used? Will it pay for itself?
Even some of the trains in Europe, the question's always been whether there's been a real economic.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's been economic benefit, but do they really pay for themselves? And that's always been one of the questions.
Well, you get that kind of a pair, right, between the fourth and fifth largest city in the U.S., downtown to downtown. That'll pay for itself, and it pays for itself through land value capture, which is another way we ought to be funding infrastructure projects. Downtown, you develop a giant facility, intermodal facility, same in Houston, same in Dallas, right?
Okay.
So all of a sudden you get up and running.
So you talk about how hard it is to do the big bill, but virtual earmark projects you can do almost immediately. Is that what we should focus on?
Well, I think we have to focus on that. If we want to get the country going, I mean, your point when you opened up was a fantastic one. We've got trillion-dollar deficits going on into the future.
Me too.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? And you know, interest rates go up, and all of a sudden we're paying $600-700 billion a year just to service the interest rate. We pay $250 billion just on infrastructure is what we invest. So the answer to your question is sure. You know, we've identified 25 projects that are good to go. They're private investment projects, not public investment projects. I think what you do is you sit down with the bipartisan Congress and you show them what the benefits are going to look like as you go forward, right? And you show them that if you move forward, you're going to get benefits for urban areas and rural areas. Look at the Gateway project. It's a $28 billion project. It produces jobs in 50 congressional districts or more for the next 40 years.
This isn't filling up a hole, digging a hole and filling it back up. I mean, we don't want bridges to collapse, right? I mean, there's a reason why we need to do infrastructure other than just boosting the economy.
Well, unless you want to leave your kids with a $30 trillion deficit and average 65-year-old infrastructure, right? I mean, that's where this is going. So it really is a national emergency.
Those are all
got to get it
excellent
done.
Points.
Yeah.
What do you think the odds are? Just looking and playing politics,
Right.
Going into this. It wouldn't be the first time a common sense project got turned down by Congress because it's so hard to get people to agree on anything. It's the small details. Even the wall that they're arguing about right now,
right.
They're basically arguing high tech versus low tech, how they're going to deal with some of these things. What are the odds that you can get this passed and they will say, yes, we agree with this?
So, Becky, the way I think about this is you've got to figure out how to get a transportation bill passed, but it's a much smaller bill. It's not going to be a big bill. It's not going to be a $1 trillion bill or $500 billion. What's that?
It's going to be piecemeal?
It's got to be piecemeal because the other part of this is you got to bring in the private sector. Look at the idea of an infrastructure bank, for instance. You could bring in $70-100 billion a year from our pension funds, right? The pension funds would love that kind of a return. So you've got to modernize our infrastructure. You've got to create space for the private sector to invest. And an infrastructure bill should be seen as a catalyst, should be seen as a bipartisan catalyst to bring in private investment. That's the way to think about it.
And there's a whole contingent on the left that they hear private investment and they sort of just say, yeah. It's never going to be more than 10%, 10 or 20% of the total. And then they blame the right for not going full bore with the public side of things. And they end up talking at each other. That the right says, oh, it's got to be all private, and the left says it's got to be 90% public, and we don't get anywhere.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to avoid by focusing on 25 projects, 50 projects, right? Because otherwise, you got to focus on the benefits. If you focus on how much we're going to spend, we don't have any money to spend anyway. We need to admit that. That's how you started. And we've got to focus on projects and crowding in private sector investment. I was with Hank Greenberg yesterday, and he's an insurance company leader and someone who really cares about the country. And he's focused on bringing in private investment, insurance money, low return, high year investment into infrastructure projects.
All right. Norm, thanks. Norm,
thank you. I appreciate it.
CGLA.